well, the first school we went to was Florida State College in Jacksonville. It was very interesting and definitely very unique compared to some of the other institutions. One of the things was within the last 10 years or so, they actually converted from a community college. And so I think that's something that's very important to kind of note. Because of that, they have limited resources and they're very kind of spread thin. So there's no one centralized like counseling center or a place for students to go like that. There's actually a point person per se on each of the campuses. So that was kind of something that was unique to see. Because of that, they don't have a lot of the full resources that you saw at some of these private institutions that had a little bit more money and finances behind it. And it's certainly not as a lot of resources as you'd see like at Florida State, for example. So because of that, there's only 5 total people that are in charge of kind of addressing mental health issues. But those people also have multiple roles. They kind of serve more as like a guidance counselor role, which was something that was interesting. What we saw is they do pretty much all, they kind of outsource everything. So that was one of the things that we saw, that people will come, they'll kind of do a quick assessment to see like what services they need and send them to the services within the Jacksonville community. So there is no actual specific services for students on that campus per se related to mental health and wellness. Something else I wanted to note too is the woman we met with, her name was Robin, and she was great, but there was definitely something that was interesting that I noticed at this institution that I didn't notice at some other ones, and that was the language in which they used. So when talking about students with mental health issues and things of the such, and different challenges that they dealt with, she kind of used words like problems and other things like that that were kind of made it have like almost a negative connotation, where it was they were kind of just there to help those people out as people are causing problems in the classrooms and things of the such. So that was very much interesting too. Robin also confirmed a lot of the different things that we saw in the literature and the other conversations with people. So again, things like anxiety, stress, depression, all big things that we're seeing on their campuses. They also have a larger military population, and it's very evident that they focus a lot on veterans more than some of the other institutions. Even if you look at their website, for example, there's a tab for veterans right there on the homepage. And so because of there being, I believe it's an Air Force base, military bases in Jacksonville, as well as the dynamics they kind of, their students that they serve, which is more of an older crowd, people returning, or people getting technical degrees, they serve a lot of veterans. And so they do see a heightened increase in PTSD than some of the other students, or some of the other universities that we were at. So that also causes a little bit of some different challenges in their little bit of their system and things of such.
So one of the challenges that Flagler faces is that they have a very small staff. It's about 3 full-time staff members, a couple interns and part-time workers that kind of make up 3 full-time staff people. And they are based on a 10-month contract, so August to May, so they don't work during the summer. And she mentioned that the most prevalent issue that they see is anxiety and depression. She made the statement that students just can't seem to sit with negative emotions, and they're not very good at regulating emotions in general. So there's been an influx in students coming to the counseling center. She said that they have seen 26% of the student population at Flagler this past year, which the national average is 10%. So you can kind of see that there's a big difference there, and she related that to being a small campus. So students are just more apt to go to counseling centers, and also that they have this thing called the care team, and that any staff member, faculty staff, can submit a concern about a student. So if a student is like drinking too much or just like kind of acting up in class, you can submit a concern, and it requires the counseling center to reach out to the student and kind of bring them in for an assessment to see what's going on. So that could also be an influx of Flagler's counseling center seeing more students. So some of the ways that she and the counseling center is trying to combat this influx of students is by doing group advising sessions, referring out. So if a student needs to see a counselor for an extended period of time, then they'll refer them out to someone They're also training RAs and employees a lot more so they can kind of see signs for emotional distress or various things like that. They're also doing online modules, so kind of meeting students where they're at and doing like suggesting different modules and apps and this and that if they're not able to see a counselor right away. And also triaging students, so that's kind of what the care team is for. And also if you come in for a walk-in, they have forms that you have to fill out to kind of triage in and see who is in a crisis in that moment. So it looks like they're doing a lot of initiatives. They still seem to have a long way to go, but overall she seems to have a lot of things that they want to put in place for the growing student population going to the counseling center.
So at Jacksonville University, we met with Dr. Kristen Alberts, who's the director of the counseling center there. She was very informative and very helpful in our meeting. She provided a lot of insight. We learned that there was a lot of differences at Jacksonville University as opposed to other schools we visited, and some we thought would be very similar since it was a private college like Flagler, but coincidentally it wasn't very that similar. Some things that were similar though, she did express that distress and anxiety were two of the main things they see in their students, so that was pretty similar to other campuses that we saw. But unlike other schools, they don't really refer out. So they have a 10-session policy for their students, and that works for their students, their student body and population there. She said about maybe 2 to 3 times a year they refer out, so it's very rare. They also do not do a lot of group work like other universities. They do a lot of one-on-one, and they do that because they have the staff to support that. So they do have 3 full-time staff members in their office, and then graduate interns that assist in that as well. So with that, they don't have to utilize the group sessions. They can have more individualized time with their students. When speaking of when we asked about training their faculty and other student body personnel and staff to help with their issues on campus, she said that they do have a training for new hires of faculty every year, just kind of like warning signs and things they see, but they definitely want to handle more things in-house, and so they encourage the faculty and staff when they see triggers or signs just to walk them over to their office and that they would be able to assist them. She just says that's how usually they see most of their students is just by the faculty and staff walking them over directly to their office. In terms of programming, of course, they train their RAs during RA training, and they're at each orientation session putting themselves out there. But when it comes to programming throughout the year, they kind of step back. So when they have those pancake breakfasts and all of those kind of stuff, they kind of just take a back seat because they don't want to be there at midnight at a fun event serving pancakes and trigger that student, be oh, there's the woman from the counseling center, and then have those negative thoughts come back into their mind, or thinking of what they're dealing with when it's usually a high stress time around finals anyway, and so they want them to not be thinking about anything but their finals. So they're not really active throughout the year at campus events where you see other faculty and staff members.
At Edwards Waters College, which is in Jacksonville as well, we didn't specifically meet with anybody to discuss mental health and wellness, but we did see their counseling center, which is housed within their student union, etc. And they really talked about having a relaxation room, the procedures of the counseling office, which is that students can, come in and discuss whatever issues that they might be dealing with. A lot of conversation when we were in this building was really centered around body image, positive body image, just the stresses and anxieties of being away from home for the first time and what that looks like, and just having that outlet. So that outlet for some people might be the relaxation room. That outlet for some people might be talking to a counselor in the counseling center, or that outlet might be going to the gym. And they showed us their gym facilities and how important it is to kind of have a healthy lifestyle, so mind, body, and spirit. So working out, eating well. Around campus, we definitely saw a lot of flyers for counseling, the counseling center, and some of their programming. So some of their programming really focused on sexual violence prevention, what is a healthy relationship, body image, so all these issues that students might be dealing with when they come to campus, there are outlets for those students to explore those issues, to talk about those issues, and really grow as a person. I think one thing that we really found in all the different colleges that we saw were that there are resources available for these students. Sometimes there were peer groups that they could work with or behavioral intervention teams, but that these relaxation rooms, an actual space for a student to kind of take their mind and body out of the normal day-to-day college grind. They could go there, either sit in massage chairs or meditate, listen to music, or do yoga. And I think that's a really big best practice that we learned during our time on Practicum. You're good.
Yeah, so I think what we should do next is we should probably talk about some of the different differences that we saw at the institution, like what made each one unique. So I can go ahead and go first, since FSCJ was the first one we went to. So I think we can all agree that the biggest uniqueness was they outsourced everything. And so that was definitely different from the other institutions that we saw. They would basically, students would come, they'd be like, okay, this is, you're dealing with some challenges. They outsourced the different resources like in the Jacksonville community. So that was unique, and I wonder how many students fall through the cracks when that happens and things like that.
Right.
I think the second thing too, part of the reason why they do that outsourcing is there is no centralized location. So you all have the benefit of like these nice counseling centers and all this different stuff, and we have to see some of the luxuries there. Without any centralized location or centralized counseling center and just having one point person dealing with all this on each campus, it's kind of overwhelming. And so I think that's a big thing too. Carol, what'd you see at Flagler?
I would say the most unique thing was the care team.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I'm still not sure how I feel about the care team, just having like people watching out for students and submitting concerns. Like, it seems a little weird. I've never seen that before. Have you guys seen that at like your institution?
No.
Yeah, no, that was neat.
So I don't know if that's because they're like a private institution, so they can do that. But I feel like it's kind of an invasion of privacy, like, going out on the town, and then like some, person who lives in St. Augustine can just like submit a concern about you, and maybe that like can essentially take up a lot of time if a student is submitting multiple like concerns, since like time consuming, and that was their biggest issue, that they can't see students. But I don't know, they seem to be loving it. So
yeah, I thought that was really interesting because like we also, being at Jacksonville University, have like a private school as well, so it was interesting to see their dynamic versus ours. And so uniquely, I think just like the larger staff also provided that, but they had the relaxation room, is something that we didn't really talk about earlier, and so that they utilize that and have like massage chairs and like the training to be able to use that. You have to be trained to actually even go in there. So that was something that she didn't even talk about, but I found on their website, was that you have to go through a training to even utilize that space. So I thought that was something very interesting and more of the normative programming that she was talking about, and talking about programming in a positive way instead of in a negative way, which was very different from your university, Chase, at FSCJ.
And I think to piggyback off of that, at Edward Waters, they definitely still had a relaxation room, and where their counseling center was basically housed right within their student union. So just in terms of like a marketing standpoint, like it's always there. It's like it's right there. It's being visible to all those students who are coming in and out of the union as well. I really felt like their school put a big emphasis on like physical health. So like their gym is right there in the student union. The gym was talked about on our tour, and how when students come to college, they kind of have to revamp their eating and exercising because you're on a completely different schedule. And they also did a lot of programming, like with bulletin boards that I saw about like positive body image and like positive healthy relationships too. So it was just really interesting to see what they focused on and some of the resources that they had, the other schools did that we attended, and then some of the resources that they relied on too.
Yeah, all the institutions were pretty diverse, and I think a lot of that is because of the institutions they serve. So, but like, what are some of the similarities that we saw, like, kind of overall for the institutions?
I think definitely the problems that their students are facing, like the anxiety and the stress, were some of the major issues. Depression,
PTSD were big ones too. I think another thing too that I kind of just was thinking of was the faculty partnerships was huge. So people like talked about how they're either A, heavily rely on the faculty partnerships, or B, like are trying to push for that. And at JU, like faculty members walked into the office. FSCJ like just started like that faculty stuff. And so I think that's a huge thing too.
And they can do that because they're such smaller institutions
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
FSU, so they are going to have those close relationships with their faculty, so they, will feel more comfortable being walked to the counseling center.
Absolutely.